No, you can speak wherever you want.
Yeah, I'll be here. Okay, cool.
So Pedro's saying that you can ask questions during the presentation, so through the application, the Slido. So just write your question there, and I will read the questions to Pedro. Okay? Otherwise, you can wait until the end, and we will do it later.
It's fine. I won't get nervous for questions in the middle. Oh, there's quite a reverb in here. Okay, cool. Hello. Welcome. Thanks for joining this session. So I'm Pedro. I could do this talk in bad English or bad Spanish. Someone shows that I do it in bad English. I'm from Lisbon. I wrote also a book. I saw lots of slides, people putting books, so I put my book in there. Make sure to buy it because I need the money. I'm founder of this company here in Barcelona called Conoce Autentia. Last proper job was in London. I was working for this online company called ASOS. I was a principal engineer there. And the last 6 years I've been working in this strange job called technical coach. I don't even like the name. I think it's more mentoring than coaching, but customers pay better if I say I'm a coach. So there it is, technical coach. And I've been 25 years doing stuff. If you want to reach out to me, there's my Twitter handle and my email. Feel free to reach out to me. Technical coaching. Before we go into mobbing and why I use mob and stuff, I want to give a bit of context. So what is technical coaching? People always love this diagram of pyramids. They always say it's the best thing on my talks. So there they are in the beginning. So these are sort of things that I go through when I'm doing mentoring. I'll call it mentoring now, not coaching. Coaching is just for customers. And for me, the important thing when I'm working with people is not to just pass information. I don't like to call it training, because training for me is I'm sitting in a classroom, I get a bit of information, a bit of data. I don't know what to do with that data, probably. So I like to put specific exercises, and I like to call this the connection between the hand and the brain. I don't know if this is a very valid thing. I came up with it, maybe someone before me. But that's what I call. So when I do a session of mentoring, we go through, is there a laser pointer in here or something? No. Oh, there is. Maybe we start with pair programming and classic TDD, and immediately we do a simple kata to put in practice that thing. And then we keep going up the pyramid and doing more and more and more and more stuff. And this is not everything, but it's sort of an idea. And through the last 6 years doing loads and loads and loads of experiments, I came up with this sequence that works pretty well. So I've tried many, many experiments, putting this subject before that subject, the other subject. I removed stuff from here, I added stuff from here. Right now, this seems to be the thing that makes learning the easiest. It's a nice learning path. I might change this in the future. This is something I'm continuously changing. And then I tend to pick stuff that's out there, loads of katas. But I don't like the idea. I go to many customers, they say, oh, we've been doing katas for 1 year. And what's the objective on each kata? And they don't know. They're just doing katas. But what are you learning on the kata? So I really like to choose, for this kata, we are learning refactoring. And we're doing these 3 katas, or 4 or 5. This kata is to learn solid principles. This is to learn something. So every kata has an objective, a learning objective. And it connects the information with the hand. Okay? I make sure people can actually do it. Okay, let's move to the next one. How long does this last, more or less? So instead of speaking in time, I like to speak in competence. So I'm an amateur musician, and when I was learning music, this came a lot, this model of learning. So the first is unconscious incompetence. I don't know, that I even don't know, that I can't do that. Then conscious incompetence, I'm aware that I'm ignorant about this. And then you have conscious competence. What I talk about conscious competence, I'll give you an example. If you start having car driving lessons, you have to focus. You have to remember, I have to press the clutch, I have to change the gear. There's a thing that you have to put a bit of mental effort into doing it. And then, as you keep driving and driving and driving, sometimes the car gets home and you don't even remember how. And that's unconscious competence. You don't have to think how to drive the car. I don't have to put mental effort into driving a car. Okay? So when I'm doing mentoring, I try to make as much effort as possible in getting people here, at least here. So they can do it. They probably need to apply some effort, but they can do it. I'm not happy with just giving the information and leaving them in here. Right? You learn TDD, but you've never applied. Now, we learn TDD, and we apply enough to move you over here so that you can do it slowly, and applying some effort. You still need to think about it, but you can do it. And for me, that's sort of the difference, my own personal, between teaching and mentoring. When you're mentoring, you're aiming here, not here. Teaching is probably there. There's another model that's used in education systems. It's pretty much the same. It's a bit more elaborate. They talk about different levels of learning. You've got remember, you've got understand, and I try to go here. You can apply that learn. So there's no point in acquiring information if you cannot apply it. What are you going to do with that? And I do believe that our brains are very addicted to information. Sometimes I go to sessions and people tell me, I don't want to practice any of this, just give me information, tell me everything about design patterns. I go, what are you going to do with design patterns? Information is not enough. You need to know how to apply that information and do something useful to it. And that's why if I go back, I'll go back to that slide on the pyramid. Design patterns is quite high because you need to have a bit of context to know, or else you start using design patterns like everything is a nail and I've got a hammer, right? So try to move until here. And those levels, it's up to the person that does the training or the mentoring with me to go up that ladder. But at least reach here. So you remember, you understand how it works, and you can apply, even if it's with some effort. Maybe you need to put yourself into it, but you can do it, all right? Okay, a quote from apparently Aristotle about repeating and repeating and practicing and practicing and practicing, and because I learned a bit of music, I got used to practice the instrument all the time, over and over and over and over. And I think that's the only thing that differentiates someone that's not very skilled from a skilled person, is just practice. If you practice enough TDD, you'll get good at it. There's no talent. You don't need a special talent. You don't need to have been born. I just bought a trumpet last week. I have no idea how to play the trumpet. But between me and Miles Davis, there's only practice. Maybe a bit more, but yeah. I believe that. So maybe one day I'll be here playing the trumpet. Okay. So, I started doing coaching. I'll go to this slide first. So this used to be my typical customer. Someone that's a bit experienced, that has done development, that has tried a bit of TDD, but their habits and their practices are not really there, and they just need a bit of a push to get them to have really, really good habits. So I used to go to customers and do these weekly sessions. And I usually use pair programming or more programming, and it starts to get closer to the subject of the talk. But one thing that I saw loads of times in customers, they were telling me, we cannot hire juniors. We cannot hire juniors. I was like, why can't you hire juniors? I started digging and digging and digging and asking questions. And then the typical answer was, our code base is too complex to insert a junior here. Our teams are too busy to attend juniors. The teams don't want juniors. They reject them because they feel like they are slowing them down. They don't have the soft skills or the hard skills or anything of those skills to train a person and to make them grow inside the team. So recently, I came up with a thing called an apprenticeship program, which I had been running in consultancy companies internally for our people. And we started offering that to our customers, which is, you hire the junior, you give it to us for 12 weeks, and we'll give it back a slightly better junior with good practice. It's still a junior, he doesn't know probably your domain, he doesn't know a lot of stuff, but he will know how to do TDD. He will know at least, if people start talking about aggregate roots, at least he knows what it is. He's not totally lost. He might not be able to do DDD, but he has some things. So some things on that pyramid will be at the remember and understand. Most of them will be on apply. But of course, DDD, they will remember and they might understand the benefits, but they can't apply. But with time, they will get there. So in this one, we also focus a bit more on soft skills, which on the other program I do not. I assume people have been working and they have the skills there. So this one is a mix between both of them. And we've been doing this with a few customers. It's going all right. Cool. This one I still do with some customers. Now, we go to mob learning, which is one technique that I use. And that's sort of the subject of this talk. Okay, so Lewin Falco, you should check him out if you want to go deeper on mob learning, came up with this. Mob programming is not about getting the most of the team, it's about getting the best of a team. It's everyone combined, we get the best of everyone. Okay, that's the objective of mob programming. Lewin also came up with this idea of the strong style of pair programming. So usually, when we are doing pair programming with the classic driver and navigator, if I'm driving, I have the keyboard, right? So whenever I have a good idea, I ask, can you give me the keyboard? I just have a great idea and I want to type that idea through. Strong style pair programming is the other way around. The driver is not making the thinking. The navigator is making the thinking. So if I have a good idea, I'll give the keyboard to the driver. Oh, I have a great idea. Can you please go through and type this idea? And the idea behind Lewin's idea of this strong style pair programming is good ideas should go through other people's brains before. So instead of you just having the idea and typing it through, you have to explain that idea to the driver, and then the driver can give you feedback. It's an interesting style. Sorry. So, roles. We have the driver who handles the keyboard and the mouse, and when I'm doing more programming, I use the strong style. So the driver has the easiest job in the world. He only has to type, okay? Now the problem, and I've seen that in loads of places, is, especially when we do mobbing for the first time, is the driver gets overwhelmed. Everyone is shouting at him ideas, do this, do that, and he goes completely nuts, and I've seen people crying, and because sometimes it can be very, very overwhelming. So what I do to do that, I use the strong style pair programming. You need to speak with the navigator. If you have an idea, don't speak to the driver, speak to the navigator. And the navigator will coordinate and then decide to tell what to do to the driver in the most abstract way possible. Okay? We don't want the navigator to tell, oh, open parentheses, write something, close parentheses, semicolon. We want the navigator to speak in an abstract way as possible as he can with the driver, so that the driver doesn't feel like, oh, I'm just a code monkey, typing whatever they tell me. I have a bit of freedom, okay? But everyone that's participating in the mob, all the other people, speak with the navigator. And then we have a few, do you call it mobster, or is this like the Italian mafia? I don't know. I never know what to call this, I put it mob, okay? Mob is more than one person sitting on a few chairs and talking to the navigator and giving some ideas, okay? And I assume the role of the facilitator. I'm just behind, making sure the learning is happening. Because when I do a mob, my objective is not to deliver some feature. My objective is to deliver some learning. So I'm making sure people are learning, and sometimes it's very difficult to get out of this mindset. Most of the software developers, we got hammered by product, and you need to deliver. And the first thing I need to tell them is, we are not here to deliver. That's outside. We are here to learn. And we don't need to deliver anything. And if we don't finish, but we've learned, we've achieved our result. So as a facilitator, I have to keep that in the back of my mind. And other things, like sometimes some people doing the mob, it's hard for them to speak, or I notice that someone is trying to contribute, but is being silenced by the mob, and I need to give them a voice, and I need to be sure that that person can speak. So there's a lot of things that a facilitator needs to do. Again, this is not a delivery mob, but it could be. So if you're doing mob programming, introducing the figure of the facilitator might be very interesting, especially if you want to make changes in team dynamics. I'll talk about that later. Cool. So, driver. Not going to read everything that's in there. You can take pictures, but the driver is just doing the simplest job in the world. It's just typing. Even stuff that he disagrees with, he's not there to disagree, unless there's something really, really strong disagreement. But he should not be disagreeing with what the team decides that is the way forward. Okay? Can I move forward? Yeah? Cool. Next, the navigator. The navigator needs, for me, the first job of the navigator is to protect the driver. Don't let the driver get overwhelmed. Don't let people speak too much to the driver, especially at the same time. Protect the driver. Filter the mob's ideas, and then speak with the driver in as high-level way as possible to allow the driver to have some freedom to type whatever things, okay? And then if you're doing TDD, of course, you can do things like create a failing test. So you might ask the driver, let's do this test, and you're not saying the name of the test, they'll do this, and it's void, and it's... No, let's write a failing test that tests this. And then if the driver needs a bit of help, help him, but try to leave it as high level as possible, okay? And refactoring and all that. So the mob, I don't know, maybe it's mobster, I don't know. Maybe someone that's a native speaking English can help me with this one. So you are participating, there's maybe 5, 6, I don't know, people doing the mob. So one of the important things is this one. If you are in a mob, everyone is very excited to put their ideas forward. Make sure people that are not so talkative or are a bit more shy also have a voice in the mob and can contribute. Because one of the problems with mob is if there's a person that's a bit more shy, he might not enjoy the experience very much. So as a facilitator should be there to make sure that this happens, but I think this is the responsibility of everyone in the mob. Allow everyone to speak and listen to everyone. And then you can contribute an idea, you can ask questions and listen and learn and do everything. So this is the role of a mob. Okay, layout. So could be a layout like this. I don't always use this layout, but this is one that Lewin Falco talks about, and I've learned a lot from him. So there's like a projector in here. The driver might be here with a desk, or maybe a standing desk writing. There's a facilitator with a whiteboard. This is important. So if there's a discussion, the navigator is the only one that has access to the whiteboard. The driver doesn't have access to a whiteboard, and that's to protect the driver. So if there's a discussion going on with the people doing the mob, they speak with the navigator owns the whiteboard. The driver owns the computer and the screen, okay? And then the mob contributes ideas around the screen. You can do this with a large screen or with a projector, it works. That's me in here as a facilitator. I try to stay away from the mob as much as possible because I'm there just facilitating. There's a book called Teaching from the Back of the Room, which is where I like to be, in the back of the room. And sometimes, if things go wrong, I will take the role of the navigator. And there's many reasons why I do that. I'm here, but my superpower in here is I can become this guy or girl, whoever is there. So if I feel that something is not working well, like the navigator is not protecting the driver good enough, we are losing focus on the learning objectives, there's this thing called analysis paralysis, where we talk and talk and talk and talk and decide nothing, and sometimes I jump over there and say, okay, we have 3 conflicting ideas, let's try 3 of them. We'll try the first one, we see the results, we experiment the second one, we see the results, and we keep moving. But no analysis paralysis, okay? But I try to be there as little as possible, okay? Only when the situation requires. Cool. Mob rules. There's a few things, like in pair programming. So you want to switch roles every 10, 15 minutes, maybe even less, maybe 5 minutes if the team is more experienced. You can try to decrease this. So One example is the navigator becomes the driver. Oh, I've got something wrong in there. There's no more main navigator. Forget about that. The driver becomes the navigator, and maybe a mobber becomes the navigator, and they keep switching. Okay. So I use this app. I don't get any money for them. I don't even know who wrote it. There's loads of them. I like this one. It's a simple one. It's a desktop version. Works on Mac and PC. I think it works on Linux. I'm not sure. I believe it does. The driver has this. So this is a tool that has all the mobbers, the navigator, the driver, and knows the rules of mob programming. So it keeps switching the roles for you and telling, hey, it's time to rotate. And then it assigns who's going to be the next driver, who is going to be the next navigator, and who's going to be the mobber. Okay, so you don't have to do that work. It's done for you by an app. There's loads of apps. I use this one. Sorry. Learning with mob. So, going back to the first slides, we have a few practices I want people to mob upon. Again, this slide. So maybe pair programming, mob programming, we just start with a simple exercise, and then as we move forward, we do slightly less mob and more pair programming, and sometimes individual work. But what I found that mob programming is really useful is I introduce a concept. Let's learn transformation priority premise. Okay, let's do Roman numbers or bowling game or other exercise. So the first exercise we do as a mob. We align ourselves, we talk amongst ourselves, learn, and I'm there as a facilitator. So if I see something that's not going according to what I want, someone is cutting corners and not learning, but just trying to complete the exercise, I can control that and make sure the learning happens as a team. And then maybe we do a second exercise on transformation priority premises. Again, going back to the first slides. Until I feel people cannot apply these, I will stay here. I can stay here for a week, for a month. I don't mind. The objective is people can apply this with effort, but they can apply. So the first time I always do mob, and then sometimes I do pair programming, and sometimes I ask people to work on their own, because mob sometimes is not enough to get things there, okay? Why? Okay, so yesterday I was very, very, I wouldn't say impressed, I don't know. I love the talk by Edu Ferro, talking about what happened to Agile and why we lost this focus on technology. So I went into Google and searched for Scream Dreamland, and this image came up. Apparently there's several callers and stuff. So if you search for that, it's probably done by these guys. So it just came up on Google Images looking for Scrum Dreamland. And this is an important thing because I'm working with technical practices, and I think Scrum and Agile and all those things are super important. They need to be there. But if you only do this Dreamland will become a horror story at some point because there's no technical practices. In the beginning, it's all beautiful. You are all delivering code very fast, but slowly, slowly you start to build that monolith. And then 10 years later, you call me, which is cool. Because I found out that I live from other people's inefficiencies and companies' inefficiencies. But I would love not to do that. If we could tackle this problem before, that would be wonderful. So if you're moving into Agile or Scrum, consider adding technical practices to your work. Or else this story that looks very cool will become a nightmare. Cool. Team dynamics. Almost finishing. So, there's this book. Marco is there, the co-author of my book. And if he was always talking about this book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Is that how you spell it? And he talks about these things like the biggest problem is when teams do not have trust. So if you don't have trust, you don't have anything above that. You first need to start with trust. Then it's the fear of conflict. And the fear of conflict is like, when we have an idea, we don't discuss it, we shy away from conflict, and not everyone's voice is heard. And what happens is, if you are not heard, you're probably not very committed. My voice was not heard, not this time, not ever. I'm never heard. So what's your commitment? Very, very low, right? And then it goes up. I will not go much. You can read the book, and there's lots of information online. The talk is not about this. What I found interesting is mob programming is great to work at this level. Because to have trust, you need to put yourself forward. And people talk about vulnerabilities and all of that. And that happens on a mob programming quite fast. Imagine someone that types very slow, and suddenly you become the driver. You are very vulnerable in that. You feel really bad. It happened to me. I used to type with 2 fingers, and then I properly learned how to type. Not very fast, but at least I'm not typing with 2 fingers. So, of course, you don't want to shame people, but you want to create in the mob a place where there's trust. And if you type slowly, or you don't know to do something, or you don't remember an API, you don't get called out. And you create this ambient of trust between people that are working in the mob. And that can have a very, very good effect on team dynamics. I didn't thought about this for very long. And I saw that the team dynamics was changing because of me doing mob. It was not my intention. I just wanted to do technical coaching. I stay away from all the rest. But then I noticed the side effect. These things were starting to work. People were trusting more each other, at least on technical subjects. They were not afraid of conflict. And conflict does not mean an ugly argument. It's just voicing your opinion and having a discussion. And then people take a decision as a mob, and then you feel committed because you've lost your idea didn't go forward or didn't work, but you feel like you've been heard. Your voice has been heard, and then you feel more committed to go forward. Again, one thing as a facilitator of a mob is making these things are there. And once I found out the correlation between these 2 things, I pay a lot of attention, especially to these 3. Okay, I make sure that there's an ambient of trust. If I see someone that types very slow or has the habit of going into Stack Overflow and doesn't know an API or something, it's all fine. Other people have other weaknesses. And we are all happy, and we all accept those weaknesses, and we move forward, because that's the way to create trust. Okay? And then, do not be afraid of conflict. If there's a discussion in the mob, let it happen, because that's good. As long as they keep moving forward and they don't fall into this analysis paralysis when no decision gets made. And then you need to intervene a bit, but don't intervene too soon. Don't try to avoid conflict. Conflict is okay within certain limits and important. And then see if there's commitment. Make sure, and that's another thing you might be looking at is, are all mobbers committed? Is someone sort of disengaged? Why is that person disengaged? Is it because of this? Because that person's ideas did not got listened and discussed? Maybe there are other situations. It's just the person's personality, but could be something coming from here or from here. Could be a fear-based thing, right? I'm afraid that everyone is going to see that I don't type very well, or I don't know the APIs by memory, and the other people in the team, they all know the APIs. They never Stack Overflow or Google or anything. So, yeah, but the team needs to change. And for me, this was the biggest and the most important thing, was the effect that I was not looking for, and it just happened. Another thing that happened was, at one customer, they didn't want me to coach the entire team, so one team. That's too much disruption. We want you to pick 1 or 2 people from each team and group them in a mob. I was like, I don't know if this idea is going to work. People don't know it themselves. Actually, it worked really well because it broke a bit the silos in the company. Suddenly, I have a problem. I'm not going to blame that team. I know a person on that team that is doing the more programming with me. Let me reach out to Jonathan because he's a nice guy. They are suddenly not us versus others. So that was another side effect. Cool. So I do a combination of mob, pairing, and individual. Mob is just one of the techniques. It's a very powerful technique to start off with, and then maybe we move into pair, and maybe some people do exercises individually. And I think this is all. Yes. Make sure to buy my book. Thank you.
Thank you, Pedro.
Thank you.
We have one question in the app for now. Someone, it says, in my experience with mob,
Yes.
some developers try to avoid mob because they feel the team speed decreases. What's your suggestion in this case?
Maybe the team speed decreases for a while, but there are some of the side effects I mentioned are quite worth it, right? Increasing the trust in the team, increasing the level of discussion in the team is quite important. And even if the mob decreases the speed, it will be for a short while. You will find out that soon the mob will be working really, really fast. One of the advantages of mob programming, I'm not talking about mob programming in delivery, but in deliveries, everyone that knows about a subject is in the room. It or should be on the mob. So you have all the information, you never stop. It's not like, oh, I need to go ask someone else. No, invite that person to the mob, and then you have all the information, and you keep going, keep going, keep going. So in the beginning, yes, but in the long term, no.
Okay, new question arrived. In my dev team, we decide that mob programming is convenient when the technical task requires some kind of learning. What heuristics do you suggest?
Oh, I don't know what the question is about heuristics. I don't know what.
Maybe who asked the question can clarify the question.
I think it's a great idea for learning and aligning a team and making. So sometimes when I'm doing delivery work with teams, the first thing we pick up a user story and the first one we mob on it to align everyone. But I don't know about heuristics. I don't know what that means. Yes.
Okay, we don't have more questions in here.
There's a person here. Yes, go ahead.
So how do you pick which language you do the mob in?
Oh, that's a very interesting thing. I don't pick the language, people pick the language. And the other day I was in a customer and they picked up Kotlin. I have never done Kotlin. I have no idea how Kotlin works. And I said, okay, let's give it a try. We're doing TDD. We're not learning Kotlin. It doesn't matter. The objective is not to learn Kotlin. But then I found out that they also didn't know Kotlin. So that got us in a bit of trouble. So I don't pick the language. I let the teams pick whatever language they want. But I've learned my lesson. Pick a language you know, or else it's going to be a problem. I think it needs to be a consensus because we are rotating the driver. The next driver should know the language. So usually we go for the easy target, which is either C# or Java or JavaScript, because sort of everyone knows one of those three, even if it's not the main language. But yeah, if there's no consensus, then I would say, who knows Java? Oh, all of you. Okay, let's do Java. Because we are learning TDD, it doesn't matter the language. Yeah, if we're doing production work, it's a bit different. There was another question over there. Did I answer your question? Cool.
Hey, if the teams don't have a lot of experience doing mob programming, it's better starting with the classical one or going directly to the strong one that you presented here?
I like more the strong pair programming now. I don't know if there's an advantage in doing the older style. And I do more programming the first day people are with me now. I didn't used to, but now I do it the first day. And if they don't know, there's going to be a lot of chaos. Everyone is shouting at the driver. The poor driver is there, oh my God, whatever I learned. And then I said, okay, so let's do 2 minutes. Everyone becomes a driver for 2 minutes. And then they empathize with each other and they understand, oh, becoming a driver, it's not that easy if everyone is shouting at me and throwing ideas. So I go straight for it. And I always do strong pairing because I need to protect the driver. Yes. There's another question there.
Any experience with remote teams?
Yes, I've done pairing and mobbing with remoted teams. I didn't notice a big difference, nothing. It's more the screen that everyone needs to share, and sometimes switching between one and another can take a bit more of time, but it's a tooling issue. Although I prefer presential, at least the first ones. I like to read the body language. As a facilitator, that gives me hints. I don't know if someone is not committed because it's more difficult for me to follow their body language. That's the only thing. Yes?
Have you used mob learning with a business approach?
I've never done that, but looks like an interesting experiment to run. I've never done that. I've only done mob learning with technical things. I've never tried anything else. No, sorry.
Okay, someone is asking, could you please enumerate some examples about how to learn code smell?
Wow. That's a very different question. So when we do code smells, so usually when I'm in a session, usually there's like a 15, 20-minute introduction. I'll go into code smells. So I explain what's the objective of a code smell. It's called a code smell. It's not called a code mistake. I go through all these things. We go through the list of code smells. I ask them to ask me questions. And then I've got an exercise that I've written. I ask them to go, this exercise has, I don't know, feature envy code smell somewhere. So go find, locate it, then go read about it, and go read about how you cure that code smell. So it's a different thing. Sometimes we do this in mob. So go read about the code smell, understand what it is, understand the cure for the code smell, identify it, and then clean it up, apply the refactor. Because this is all very mechanical. Code smells is sort of, once you understand them, the refactoring is mechanical. Martin Fowler wrote an amazing book about this. You have the code smell, and you have the treatment. Just apply it. Yeah? So that's what I do.
Okay, any other question from the audience? No? Okay.
Cool. Thank you very much for
your
your
time.
time.
Thank you.